Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, Ricky Rains, coming to you guys on a Wednesday evening. We apologize. We were a few minutes late getting some things worked out here, but we're glad to be back with you guys. We got a pretty big episode tonight. We have a first-time guest coming on in 10 or so minutes, Justin Melo from the Draft Network. He's a writer and interviewer, I should say, for them. Very excited to talk to him. He's talked to several prospects that Carolina has either brought in for visits or has talked to at either the Combine or the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl. So we're excited to, pick his brain about some of these guys that Carolina is looking at. But we'll start with these two fine gentlemen. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Wonderful, man. I see Ricky's wearing his shirt finally. I guess it came in his Bryce Reaper shirt there.
Right, my Carolina Reaper for Panthers fans only.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to talk to Justin about some potential draft candidates for Carolina. Getting some more details on that. I know our fellow co-host here, Ricky, is really good about getting into detail about each of these prospects. But it's good to get a different opinion about it, and Justin's going to bring that to us and to the people listening. So I'm excited for that.
Yep. Agreed. I am excited to hear his perspectives on some of the guys that Carolina has met with, right? Or has scheduled to meet with, and that he has spoken to as well, to kind of get a feel. Look, man, that we talk so much about, or Carolina's coaching staff talks so much about, like, the football story and the people and not just the player. I mean, how else do you get to know them unless you talk to them, right? So Justin being able to have these conversations with these guys, he's gonna have a good feel for how they could potentially fit with a very culture-driven team like Carolina. I'm just happy, man, that I'm here and don't sound completely terrible. I know I sound a little sick, but I have been sick all week, man, and I thought for sure I was gonna have to dust this thing tonight. But I had turned a corner, man, like LiAngelo Ball hit that corner this weekend, and found my way back here. So happy to be on tonight, fellas.
Yeah, it's good to have both of you guys on. What are we drinking this evening? Ricky, do you got anything? That I think you do, even if you're
I do
sick.
actually, yeah. So I was trying to make a hot toddy before the show started, but I was worried about being late. And little did I know Curtis was going to be fucking dicking around for a few minutes. I could have made my hot toddy, but instead I'm drinking a sour double IPA. It's called Foxicle. And this thing is really good. Actually, it's kind of crazy, man. Like, the whole premise of a sour IPA is weird, right? Like, it just sounds bonky. But this is a sour double IPA with peach, vanilla, and marshmallow. And it tastes like a sour, hoppy creamsicle. It's really cool, man. I enjoy it a lot.
That sounds right up my alley, dude. Oh, my goodness. I'm all about the marshmallow in a
It is terrific, man.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Oh, my goodness.
Where is that from?
Yeah, what brewery?
Let's see. Foxicle is from Abomination Brewing in North Haven, Connecticut.
Okay. All right.
I'll put it's got this weird fucking bird on there with like a creamsicle popsicle. It's a weird can.
I like
man.
that.
Yeah, when I saw it at the store, I was like, I gotta get that, like, just off of what it was. And then I read the description and I was like, okay, I actually might enjoy this as well. So
does it taste good?
Dude, it tastes so good. I'm serious. Like, it has this perfect balance of the sour, little bit of sweet, but not really, but like that sweetness of the peach and like vanilla just kind of like mellow out the sour. But then the hoppiness from the double IPA really cuts it so that sour is not like, in the back of your throat type of sour. Dude, it's a really good beer, man. We have a brewery here in Charlotte called Edge City that does sour IPAs a lot. And we go sit on their patio a lot during like spring and summer. And so I've just become a sour IPA fool.
I need to try it, man. I need to try it.
So Bryson, before you go, show the folks your hat as well.
Oh yeah, the draft cap. Look at that, folks. It's doesn't have the pin because it's a snapback. I was a little pissed about that. Curtis pointed that out to me after I purchased the hat. So that was a little frustrating, but I'm not buying a fitted hat. I'm just not that guy. I don't like the fitted hats. I love a snapback, and if it means losing a pin, then I'm fine with that because the snapback is worth it. But it's got the cool detail on the brim there. I mean, it fits really good. I like the hat a lot. I'm definitely wearing it more than just draft night and keeping it going. But my wife has told me that she is putting a rule on me that I cannot buy any hats for the rest of the year. I'm not going to follow that rule. I can promise you. So I'm going to be sneaking in some some hats. So if anybody's got any ideas on how to get those in quietly, just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'm open to any ideas, but yeah, tonight I'm not drinking anything special, man. I'm leaving for West Virginia tomorrow, so I didn't have much time this evening to pick up anything great. So I stopped at Sheetz, and I'm drinking the classic Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA, 9.5%. These things hit hard. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm too deep, and I've been drinking since 5. So not only that, other things, and these things are definitely raising the level a little bit. Tastes great. Again, 9.5%. In a good beer.
Yeah, I went back to the old wine cellar with the wine I had last week, finishing that up. I also do have this Tennessee wine. It's a white wine, so we're going to dabble with that a little bit. But our guest is actually here this evening, so I'm not going to make him wait any longer. And actually, he might be finishing up some stuff, so I don't want to put him on the spot. Well, we'll give him a couple minutes here. But Bryce, I did want to touch on the hat quickly. It's got kind of that like a NASCAR feel to it, like with the I don't even know what it is, like the tree, like I don't even know what you want to call it, like design on the like. I can't talk tonight.
It's like the ornamental leaves type of deal on the side. It's like almost like an old captain's hat, man. Like captain's really hat and like an old Navy hat or something like that.
Yeah, and it's got like the fit is kind of like a trucker style up top. So I mean, if you don't fit it tightly like against your head, it does look a little weird. So you got to like tighten it on the back. But I mean, after I did that, it's fine. I like it a lot. I really do. And, you know, my wife is very blunt and will tell me if it looks stupid. And she said it looked good. So I'm going to keep wearing it. And if anybody else thinks it looks dumb, let me know. But, you know, my wife is the most honest critic I have. And she told me it looked good. So I'm going to keep wearing it.
Yeah, they got a tendency to be that way, don't they?
Quick question for you, Ricky. Are you like a snapback, or are you like fitted hats? Where do you fall in that?
I'm more of a snapback. Fitted hats. I mean, I used to like almost exclusively wear fitted hats, and I feel like the older I got, the more I started moving into a snapback. Like, man, I just do too much shit. I can't be wearing a snapback or a fitted hat that, you know, gets all the like the pressings on your head and stuff. Then you take the hat off and you look like an idiot. Look like a Ninja Turtle, man. Like it just like molds to your head. So yeah, I'm a snapback guy now, and I also feel like you can get them for cheaper. So anything I could do to save money, because I'll buy them in bulk. You know.
Yeah, I used to be fitted too. I feel like they get baggy over time too if you wear them a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, and you're kind of screwed once that happens. So.
Curtis, they get what? Can you say that again for us?
Say that
word again. I ain't saying that. I'm not saying that. Let's go to the chat, and then we'll bring our guest in here quick. So we got Dalton was in here first. Let's go. Zach Griffin, appreciate you guys coming on. Jaylin Walker, you spelt his name wrong. You are a Panther. A lot of folks talking about Jalen Walker. We will talk about Jaylin Noel tonight, so stick around. We got that coming up, actually probably right off the top here. James, we're here. We appreciate it. Ricky's mom always coming in clutch for us here. Appreciate her tuning in as always.
What's up, Mom?
Keaton Bullock, believe he's been on a couple times. Appreciate him.
Oh, yeah.
James Cody. And we'll get to some of these questions, too. I'm just trying to get through some of these folks here. Making True Money, he's been on several times. He finally showed up for the live one again. He kind of is in and out. He doesn't know when there are, but we appreciate it when he shows up. James Cody, I'd love to hear y'all's take here in a little while. We do appreciate that. We'll get to more of you guys here soon, but let's bring in our guest. I said it off the top. He's a first timer on the show, and Justin Melo, he's from the Draft Network, and he's both a writer and interviewer with them. So Justin, first welcome. Why don't you tell us, both us and our viewers, a little bit, and our listeners, just a little bit about yourself and what you do for the Draft Network.
Yeah, writing daily articles for TDN, as you said. Main gig is the player interview series. Kind of developed that about, nearly a decade ago. It's been going strong, kind of exploded for me back then. It's gone to the point where, what are we? We're April 2nd on the calendar. I've interviewed 155 prospects in this class, just a series that, again, kind of took off for me, does well every year. So I'm knee deep in it right now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. How long have you been with Draft Network? But you said about 10 years?
No, sorry. I've been in the industry for about 7 or 8. Started at the Draft Network on a full-time basis. Geez, I believe it was 3.5 years now.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, Bryson, why don't you kick things off? Because I know, one of the higher end prospects that Justin had a pleasure of talking to was Jaylin Melo. So why don't you kick things off for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name because Curtis got me a little confused now, but Jaylin Noel or Jaylin Noel, wide receiver that the Carolina Panthers have reportedly brought in for a 30 visit from Iowa State. If you can talk a little bit about him in your interview process with him and what you came away thinking about Jaylin Noel as a prospect.
Yeah, I actually got to speak with him twice already throughout this process. Once for a Senior Bowl series that we do, and then more recently for the pre-draft series. But I mean, he's just checked boxes throughout this process. I'd say the entire time, right? I mean, you look at the production; it was elite this past year at Iowa State, and that's sharing the ball with Jaden Higgins, right? Both of them had big years, very different receivers. But then Noel goes down to the Senior Bowl and checks boxes there. I mean, elite separator. Quick to kind of separate from coverage, find soft spots in zone, can beat man coverage. I think he's shown some flex alignment, can play the Z, but more likely a slot, I think, at the next level. Well, he goes to the NFL Combine, again, continuing that theme of checking boxes. Big-time production this past year, great at the Senior Bowl. Then at the Combine, he puts up some of the best numbers of any receiver. Runs in the 4.3s. Believe had the best broad jump and vertical among the receivers. I think he cleared, 41 in the vertical and 11 in the broad. It was just outstanding stuff. So, I mean, I don't know why he's not getting just a little bit more first-round buzz. Now, I'm not saying this guy's a top 20 pick, but when I look at last year and I see someone like, Ricky Pearsall go in the first round to San Francisco, I don't see why this kid can't get the same sort of treatment. Now, I think Carolina would probably be thrilled if he's there in the second round, specifically if they go with a D lineman or an edge in the first and don't grab one of the top pass catchers. But I do think he's going to go either, be a surprise late first or early second. Ton of receiver needy teams picking at the top of the second, right? And a lot of them I don't think are going to be going receiver in the first. The Panthers, the Patriots, the Titans. I think this guy goes no later than about 35, 36 overall.
Justin, sorry, Ricky. I just want one more thing. Justin, just let me ask you this. Like, what area specifically does he excel in, like, on the field? Is he a field stretcher? Is he somebody that's going to continually stress the defense and make that defense think that, this guy's going deep and we got to keep track of this guy? What area does he specifically excel in on the field?
In my opinion, he's more of a short area quickness guy. When it comes to that vertical ability, this is not a big-bodied guy, right? This is not a 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". This is not a contested catch winner. He's a guy that separates underneath the coverage, has some yak ability as well. But to me, he's that slot guy that you're targeting underneath the coverage. That's a quarterback's best friend. Very oftentimes, right? And the Panthers will have to ask themselves, in all honesty, do we need that type? They might feel like they've already got one in Xavier Legette. So they might want more of a Ted McMillan, a big body dominant X guy on the boundary. But for me, Jaylin Noel is more of a short area quickness separator.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Justin, because you brought up a point about why wouldn't he be considered in the first round, right? Late first round, when you saw a guy like Ricky Pearsall last season go. Do you think that there's any kind of almost just like wide receiver skepticism because of the fact that the top part of this draft isn't looked at as having those elite players at the wide receiver position like last year? So they're like, well, look, if Jaylin Noel is my wide receiver 5 or 6, how could I feel comfortable taking him at pick 31 or 30 when I'm not even comfortable taking wide receiver 1 until 24, 25?
I don't know that that's it. I will say that you're right. Again, not a high-end class at receivers, just like you said. But I do think once you start to get into the meat and potatoes of this class, if you will, receivers specifically, that there are some really intriguing good ones that I think are going on day 2. Like, I put this guy in the same bucket as his teammate, Jaden Higgins, who I'm also very high on. I really like Jalen Royals out of Utah State. I think Trey Harris out of Ole Miss is another one. So I do think there's a bucket of these day 2 receivers. Kyle Williams out of Washington State. that are going to be very productive. And some teams, they might prefer, where you got a good point there. Some teams might prefer the depth of this receiver class as opposed to, grabbing one at, say 8 or 9 where Carolina's picking.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't mean it that like that's the way an NFL team, right, would be approaching. But like just from a standpoint, when you see all of the analysts and things, when they speak about kind of the wide receiver class, it seems like there is just a not dislike, I think that's the wrong word, but just an unfavorable viewing of the wide receiver group as a whole. The last question I'll ask for you, Justin, on Jaylin is you mentioned him as a slot guy, and a short area obviously is his go-to. You can see that with the metrics. But he did play his most outside snaps that he had played in his career this year at Iowa State. And honestly, on some of those, especially the vertical routes, I thought that he did show an ability to be a little bit more of a move, and you could put him out on the boundary a little bit. Reminds me a tiny bit of the conversation that happens with Luther Burden almost, and they have a relatively similar build when it comes to height, weight, and kind of like dense build and compact body style. Do you think that Jaylin Noel can be moved around a little bit? Maybe he sees 70% of his slot snaps, but do you think that he does have a little bit of versatility to play outside?
I think he's got a little bit. Maybe I'm too old school in this belief, but I still prefer my X receivers to be the bigger guys. I still like a DeAndre Hopkins, a T. Higgins to play X. I think he could probably play the Z a little bit, because keep in mind with the Z, you're still kind of keeping him detached from the line of scrimmage, right? And you're still able to hide him from press man coverage. I look at a guy like Calvin Ridley, for example. I think he's a very different receiver, but he's made his money playing the Z and the slot, right? He's never gone out there to the X because, beating physical press man coverage is not his thing. But I do think Jaylin can play the Z a little bit as well.
One quick question on Noel here is, how does he match up against physical corners? Did you get to ask him about that at all? And, press man coverage, is there any concern there? I know he's a little bit shorter, 194. I think he came in at the combine. Was there any concern there at all with him against the press or a physical corner?
I do personally have a little concern, and it's the main reason that I don't really see him playing X at the next level. The thing with him is he's so quick at the line of scrimmage that if you do gamble and try to get your hands on him and be physical, if you miss, you're going to be in some trouble, right? So that's where his best ability, I think, comes in at beating press man coverage. But if you do, especially NFL caliber corners we're talking about here, if they do get their hands on him early successfully, I think they'll feel pretty confident in their ability to control that rep.
Curtis, I don't know if you had this on your docket, but, we talked about this coming into the show, Justin, about how much this team, the Carolina Panthers, and the front office and the coaching staff emphasize culture and valuing the person as opposed to just the player on the field. So you got to speak to this guy, in person or personable, not secondhand. What kind of person is Jaylin Noel? Is this a guy that is going to buy into the team culture? Wide receivers have a bad connotation of being a little bit diva if they're not getting their way. From all things that I had read about Jaylin Noel, he seems like a very culture-driven dude. He's a team-first, hard worker, going to be one of the first one in, last one out type of guys. What was your read on him from a personal standpoint?
Yeah, outstanding kid. Real grounded, down-to-earth, humble. In talking to him a couple of times, like I said, throughout this pre-draft process, I didn't get a single ounce of impression that this is a diva type of guy or a my ball every play kind of guy. No, this is a super humble, grounded, hardworking, polite, coachable kid.
Awesome.
And I honestly think that speaks volumes, not to jump in, but Carolina is big on the culture fit, and I feel like they want guys that align with what Dave Canales and Dan Morgan are trying to build. So I think that would put some weight on to, him being, or them being interested in him, just from that standpoint. But let's move on. Enough about him. Let's talk here, and I don't even know which one is next, so I apologize. Let's talk about Femi for a second. You got to talk to him as well. What were your impressions of Femi when you got to talk to him? And this is one of my favorites in this draft.
Yeah, I had to chuckle when I saw his name come up on your screen because bubbly, outgoing personality, just one of the most fun prospects I've ever had the pleasure of speaking with. This guy texted me. This is a true story. I did the interview with him, Senior Bowl series in January, right? He sends me a text a couple nights ago. I'm like with my wife laying down watching TV, and he sends me a text going, "What's going on, boss man?" And I'm like, oh, Femi, how are you doing, man? It's been a couple months. I didn't expect to hear from him. And he's like, man, that interview, the first one we did was so great. Can we do another? Like, just you don't get that a
That's
lot
awesome.
in this industry, in all honesty. And super bubbly, super personable, like fun kid. And I mean, you turn the tape on, like this guy, I've almost never seen anything like it. He moved to edge in the middle of the season. This past year. He went from off-ball linebacker to edge in the middle of the year. No off-season, nothing to acclimate. There were some whispers they were thinking about it, but they didn't actually implement it. So no, not real practicing it or anything. Middle of the year, and I thought he was very productive from a pass rushing perspective. Now, of course, a little raw when he hasn't even had a full offseason to go through yet as a pass rusher, right? So naturally, he's a little raw, but the athleticism jumps off the screen. I think still developing the football IQ at a new position, of course, when it comes to reading and reacting. But super athletic. I mean, just scratching the surface of his potential. Can't wait for a good, a D-line coach, pass rushing coach to get their hands on him.
Justin, let me ask you this about Femi. Do you think that the NFL community, the people in the front offices are higher on him than what we would see, outside with the media and common mock drafts across us outside of the NFL community? Do you believe that the NFL rooms are higher on him than what we might see outside?
I do think there's a good chance they are. If everything else checks out, I think – I've seen him in first-round mocks. Yeah, that might be a little surprising, certainly. But then, I see some people are sending either mock drafts, fourth, fifth round. I mean, not a chance in hell, in my opinion. If there isn't a medical, if there isn't an off-field thing, like not a chance in hell, fourth, fifth round. Like I think at the latest, you're looking at a guy that's going 65th overall, for example. But top 50 wouldn't stun me.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. That was a good question, Bryson. That was what I was wondering too, because I had seen something about he had a 30 visit with the Commanders, I believe it was, and that somebody had linked him even saying that he could potentially be their first-round pick for the Commanders.
He's got a 30 visit with 11 different teams.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest there.
Wow.
with Femi. Wow. And, for the Panthers standpoint, he meets a lot of the physical thresholds, and I think that's one of the appealing things that when we try to find prospects that Dan Morgan or the Panthers historically have looked for, the arm length is one of the key things, right? Like Chris Ballard has his RAS thing that he was really into. Ours seems to be this 33 and a half inch arm threshold, and O2, he clears that. One of the things that I love so much about O2, Justin, is the power that he has. He's got this raw, untapped power too, because like you said, he's still learning the nuances of that edge position as opposed to an off-ball backer. So I think once he kind of gets down, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, once he kind of gets down a little bit more about like that first step and creating leverage and having that a plan for a pass rush, what he can do with his physical traits. Like this guy seems to have just about everything you look for as far as like a toolbox.
You can't teach it, right? Like the athleticism and the arm length is present. And then I'm glad you said it because I think he's going to develop into a pretty good speed rusher as he continues to get his feet wet. But the ability to convert speed to power as well, right? And you talked to him about that arm length. I mean, he uses it to keep offensive linemen at bay. Right. And then that's, super helpful when it comes to winning the edge. So the length, the speed, the athleticism, I think he's doing a great job converting speed to power. I really, 2-3 years from now, I could see this guy having a super diverse pass rushing arsenal.
All right, let's move to the next one. I don't want to keep you too long. I do appreciate you provided some great insight so far. Trey Amos, a guy that Carolina has, I believe it's a 30 visit that they brought in, or they're going to be bringing him in on. Corner. They signed J.C. Horn to a big deal this offseason, one of the top paid corners in the NFL. They bring back Mike Jackson, who, had a pretty decent year last year for coming literally in a trade like a week before the NFL season started. He became the starter opposite J.C. Well, what do you see in Amos? How'd that interview go with him? And do you think he can compete? Do you see him more as an outside corner? Or someone that can fill in for the nickel, because that's something Carolina, I think, is still looking for as competition with Shaw Smith-Wade that they drafted last year.
Yeah, I like this guy a lot. I don't think he's getting enough buzz. This is not a very good corner class in general. At least some of the, especially at the top. Once you get past, of course, Travis Hunter, depending on your evaluation of him. And I'm a big Will Johnson guy. I haven't quite understood I think the pre-draft process is sometimes too long. I don't have any issues with Will Johnson as a prospect, but after that, there are a lot of questions, right? And I think this guy is right up there. I think he's with that group of like a Benjamin Morrison who has an injury, a Siobhan Revel who has an injury. Jade Barron is probably going to be corner 3 is the indications I'm getting, but I think this guy's right there. And I hate to, I've said this about a lot of the prospects we've discussed tonight, but like back end first, early second, at least that's the grade that I have on him. And I do think he's got alignment flexibility. I think he could play nickel, and I think he could play outside as well. I talked to him about his time at Ole Miss. They were versatile there. They played a lot of zone. They played a lot of man. I think he's got instincts in zone. I think he's got a super physical mindset in press. So I'm a huge fan of this player. I think he's a day one contributor, day one starter.
Real quick, Justin, Carolina picks at 57 in the second round. You think they'd probably have to move up to go and get him?
I think it'll be close, right? Yeah, I think it's probably that 45 to 60 range for him. So, yeah, you might have to. He might be there, right? It's one of those that I think it could go either way. And you have to see if there's a run on corners. I think top of the second round, what could be good news for them if that's what they're targeting there. Top of the second, I think you're going to see edge rushers, receivers, and tackles fly off the board because I think there's a bit of a jumbled crop of those players at those spots. And I think when I look at edge again, Landon Jackson, a James Pierce, a Mike Green, I think a lot of those guys will be available the top half of the second. At receiver, Luther Bird and Emeka Ibuka, Trey Harris, the 2 Iowa State receivers we briefly discussed. At tackle, Ariante Ursary, Josh Connerly Jr., Josh Simmons with the injury. A lot of these guys, not all of them, but a lot of them are going to be available at the top of the second. And I think that's the run that you're going to see in that 33 to 45 range. So I think Trey Amos, decent chance he's there at 57. If that's the way Carolina want to go, I think they'd be thrilled and that'd be a great pick.
Hold on, guys, because he said something really interesting there. James Pierce, Mike Green, is that what you're hearing, that they could possibly fall out of the first round?
Well, there's off-field questions with both of them, right? And I think that's been pretty well documented. With Mike Green, there's been a couple run-ins that I know, made some scouts a little uncomfortable. And with James Pierce, there's, allegedly just, character and effort questions that scouts have. And, you've heard way too much of it to just write it off. Those are very real things for both of those players. Now, they're also both incredibly talented, and it only takes one team to take a chance on them. But with the questions surrounding both of their evaluations, yeah, I think there's a chance that they, sneak out of the first round.
Interesting stuff, man. I love that you're high on Trey Amos, though, Justin. And honestly, man, you have said a lot of the same things I've been thinking about some of these prospects and said myself. So I'm enjoying having you on here as a guest on the show tonight. You're making me feel really smart about myself, too. I got Trey Amos as my cornerback 4. I actually have him as my 19th overall player in this class. One of the few first-round grades. I've got 24 first-round grades. He's one of them, but he's right there at the tail end. I think you touched on a really good point, though, about him being able to play zone and man. I think that's an important thing for him because of his footwork and his instincts and football IQ. The only questions that I've had about Trey Amos was the ball production, but he seems to have a really good ball skills and the ability to make the plays. Good in completion rate. He just didn't have the opportunities as much, I think. But I think he could make it in the NFL there.
All right,
and he's a dog. I'll tell you that real quick.
Yeah.
He's got quite the personality, man. He's got the personality after speaking to him that I want my corners to have.
Love that.
Let's go to this next one, and then we'll end with a couple chat questions. We can get you out of here. But is it Jarquez Hunter? Am I saying that right? Now that I bombed Jaylin Noel's name off the top.
You got to forgive him. He's from Wisconsin, man. He says everything weird.
I should have got
Vague.
But let's talk about Hunter for a second, because Carolina, they draft Jonathan Brooks last year in the second round. He re-tears his ACL, probably out for this entire season coming up here. They go out, they cut Miles Sanders, who they had backing up Hubbard, and then they go out and get Rico Dowdle as the backup. What do you see from Hunter, and what can he bring to this Carolina offense?
Yeah, a bit of a bowling ball running style, in my opinion. He's super powerful, can run the football up the middle effectively. Compact guy, compact build, in my opinion. He does have a 30 with the Panthers. And if they're going to draft a running back, the Jonathan Brooks thing was so unfortunate, but they've made some investments there that you alluded to. I think this is the right range for them. I think this is probably a 6th or 7th round pick kind of guy. This is a really, really deep running back class. He's talented, but it's so deep that, he's going on day 3 in my opinion. But he's a talented guy, and I think he could come in and help, especially as, again, the unfortunate situations surrounding Brooks. Feels like this is probably going to be a committee approach this season, right? They're not going to lean on one back, I think, to carry them through a game. So I think Jarquez Hunter is the kind of guy that can come in and give them a good, change of pace option.
Guys, anything else on Hunter? Any follow-ups to that?
No, again, man, like Justin is right on cue with what I was just looking at mine to see where I have him, and I've got him at running back 21 with a 6th-round grade. So I mean, I 100% am in cahoots with that. The thing that I'm looking at for the Panthers too with running back, and you make a good point that I'm not sure that they would even invest a draft pick in that area with a running back. They may be able to look at the undrafted free agents to kind of like pick through and sift through what they may want. A guy like Raheem Sanders out of South Carolina is a guy that I could see that, with some injury history and stuff like that, that if he's healthy, he's a really good ball player. But there's some questions. Does that let him fall? Maybe even a smaller guy like Marcus Yarns out of Delaware, if you're looking for that pass catching receiving threat out of the backfield. That was what I was going to ask you about Jarquez, though. Do you think that that's an element of his game that he can improve upon in the NFL, or is that just not really one of his fortes? It's not that he can't do it. He just didn't do it often in school. So do you think that that's an element that you could expect a boost at the NFL?
Yeah, I think there's maybe a little untapped potential there for him, but I don't see this guy ever being a high-end pass catcher at the next level, right? I don't think that's necessarily his game. I think he's going to be a bowling ball, change of pace guy up the middle. I don't think he's, certainly not completely useless in the passing game. I think he's physical and violent and pass pro. That'll help him get on the field in those situations, but I don't see this being like a high upside pass catcher.
I want to ask you about this guy quickly, Justin, and it's Brady Cook, because Carolina, we know it sounds like, Bryce Young is the guy for this year. We'll see where that, transpires from what unfolded last year. And I'm not trying to say like this guy's going to come out and take his job, but you did put in your notes that he had a great meeting with the Panthers. Can you kind of fill us in on that? Because, last year, I think Carolina, Plummer, I think they got him undrafted. I don't know if they brought him in off the street. I can't remember, but they brought him in. He kind of was in training camp, got some snaps. I think he started, I want to say, the last game of this last preseason game. Obviously, Andy Dalton was back up. But tell us a little bit about Brady Cook.
Yeah, those were his words. He told me that he had a great meeting with the Panthers. I believe that was at East West Shrine. He said it, if I'm remembering correctly now. But backup quarterback potential. I'd be pretty surprised if this guy came in and established himself as a long-term NFL starter. But I do think there's some backup potential there. He'll be a high football IQ quarterback. Will do a good job supporting a starter in the room. But would be pretty stunned if he came in and ever supplanted someone like Bryce Young.
I just had a touch on it because I thought when he told you that, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't think this guy was taking anyone's job, but just I guess real quick, have you heard any rumblings at all on some of these other top prospects at that edge spot for Carolina? I know that's been a topic of conversation lately around our fan base. Or any interviews that you got coming up here down the pipeline that we can look forward to at all?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the pass rusher at 8, I think the Panthers are in a good spot, and I know not every fan will feel this way, but I like most of them, to be honest with you. Like the Jaylin Walker just is so well loved in NFL circles. I don't even know that he makes it to 8. In all honesty, like I think his ceiling is number 4 with New England, and I think there's a chance that the Jets would look at him at 7, even the Raiders potentially at 6, but. I think Michael Williams out of Georgia is a guy that I'm high on. I don't necessarily. I know there's some risk factor involved there, but I see. I hate this because it's similar, but I see a lot of Trayvon Walker to his game, and people forget just because Trayvon Walker went 1 and Aiden Hutchinson went 2 doesn't mean Trayvon Walker's not a really good football player and a really good edge rusher. Trayvon Walker's a good football player. I think Michael Williams is going to be a really good football player. You can't teach that length. And like you said earlier, Ricky, he's going to check off the boxes for Dan Morgan from a height, weight, length perspective. I'm high on him. I think he plays inside, outside. The Texas A&M kid is the one. I think that's the big question. A pretty good pressure rate, not a lot of sack production. He'd probably be the one that I think's the riskiest of the 3. I do think he's going high. I would have him ranked probably, again, 3 out of those. I would have Michael Williams ranked number 1 out of those 3 options at number 8. I think the consensus is that Jaylin Walker will be the first one drafted between those 3. But I think the Panthers are in a good position. If edge or, D-line's the way they want to go, they're going to get a good football player with a lot of upside.
Justin, let me ask you, why Micah Williams over Jaylin Walker or anyone else there?
I think with Jaylin, you're still projecting a little bit, right? Like he did still play some off-ball, stack backer. And if you're projecting to full-time edge rusher, you necessarily haven't seen it on a snap-by-snap basis. Whereas with Michael Williams, and I know, that was a transition that he made this year, and it didn't go as smoothly as, all parties involved would have liked. But I'm comfortable with him playing inside, outside. I think of like a Danico Autry from a couple of years ago who kicked inside on third downs, played outside on first and second, and had a lot of success doing that. Again, I don't think you can teach the length or the athleticism. He's still super young as well. Like, I don't know what is he turning, like 21, I think is a rookie.
21, yeah.
So it's like,
I can't even buy a beer yet, man.
Yeah, right. In America, no, you can't buy a beer.
Yeah.
Right? You can't buy a beer yet. But with him, I just see a lot of untapped potential, and I'm excited about what he could become. I'm super, super high on him.
So should we get him out with the question from the chat, guys? Is there any?
Well, I got to sneak one in here. Hold on, because I know
Okay.
I know Bryson wants to know about this.
I tried, Justin. I tried to help you out there. You heard that.
He's big on the wide receivers. So I want to ask you, Tet McMillan, what's the rumblings you're hearing? Is this a guy that's going to slip into the late teens, or do you see a potential where he's, in the 10 range or even pops into the inside of the, top 10 of the draft?
I'll be honest with you. I'm hearing both, and I'm not sure which I trust right now, right? It's smokescreen season. It's lying season. I feel like the size, the production, you can't ignore it. There are apparently some off-field questions that scouts have. I think I grabbed that from Bob McGinn's piece on Go Long, which is outstanding every single year. But there are, and I've spoken to some scouts as well, there are some questions they have. But the production, I think if you went back to last year, someone said this to me, it's very interesting. If you go back to last year, mock drafts are more accurate in January than they are in April. Because you start hearing a bunch of stuff and you don't know what to believe. But when you're in January and you're just relying on what you should be relying on, and that's the tape and the production and the athleticism, you tend to avoid making those mistakes because you hear so much BS, right? Once April rolls around. But I just can't get past the production factor and the size. And I thought the numbers at Pro Day were fine. There's a lot of controversy about them. I thought 4.55, whatever it was at that size, is a terrific time. There's nothing wrong with it. For me, this is a top 10 player. But it does sound like there's a possibility, that he does sneak outside that top 10. I think teams would be making a mistake. I think that'd be a great pick for Carolina at 8, a great pick for New Orleans at 9, even Vegas at 6, who, haven't quite replaced Devontae Adams, obviously, and now have a quarterback that love to push the ball down the field in Geno Smith. So I think those 3 teams are all receiver needy, and they all need his type, right? Carolina needs an X. I think New Orleans needs an X. The Raiders need an X. That's what he is when I talked about earlier. I'm old school throwback. I like a T. Higgins on the boundary. I like a Tet McMillan on the boundary, right? And he's got some contested catch. When I first turned on the tape on him, several months ago to begin my scouting process, I thought I thought I was crazy because everyone's talking to me about this guy being big-bodied, physical. I thought he had more wiggle. I thought he had a more creative release package than he gets credit for. He's got nice wiggle for his size at the line of scrimmage, right at the snap. So I'm excited about him. I think this guy could be a dominant receiver. If the attitude and the effort all checks out, the skill set's dynamic.
Amen, Justin.
You got a question from the chat?
You probably just riled up this Panthers fan base a whole lot, just to let you know. You can expect a whole lot of ats coming your way on Twitter. But speaking of Twitter or chat or whatever, let's get you out of here with this question from the chat. And they asked, what are some speedy wide receivers? Because that's the thing, man. This Carolina Panthers offense in general, and not just the wide receiver room, but period, just doesn't have a whole lot of home run threats. Doesn't have a whole lot of guys that threaten the defense vertically and they make you account for where they are. What are some speedy wide receivers, maybe flying under the radar, maybe that even are premier guys, right? Like Isaiah Bond, I know has some character issues that have come out recently, but it's the first that I'd heard of him, or the first I'd heard of the character issues, not of Isaiah Bond. I'm very familiar with him. But I look at him, and then there's a guy like Kyle Williams who has become a darling, right? And everybody is talking about Kyle, and rightfully so, good player, but it's really recent type of talk. What are your thoughts on the speedy class of receivers here for Carolina?
Well, I'll quickly give you 2 names that will be available on day 3 if the Panthers want to go that route and just, double down at receiver, for example, and that second one being a speedy one. And both of them are very raw. I'll be honest with it, but it's Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, who I think ran a 4.36 at the combine.
And he's like 6'5" or 6'4".
Yeah, and he's a big body guy. And Arian Smith out of Georgia. I mean, both of them threaten vertically in a major way. Both of them have had drop issues in college, right? So I think you're still working through some technical warts. That's why they're not going earlier. Because when you look at some of the production and you look at the body type and the production, the speed, you're like, well, it looks like the total package on paper. But when you turn the tape on, you start to see the technical warts pop up. The focus drops. Still learning how to play, the technical aspects of the position. But those are two guys who will be available on day 3 who threaten vertically. And if you can kind of, figure out that part of their game, watch out.
Well, Justin, we thank you so much. Can you let folks know, our listeners, where they can find you on your platforms?
Yeah, on Twitter at @JustinM_NFL. I don't think I'll ever get used to calling it X. So on Twitter at @JustinM_NFL. Hit up the draftnetwork.com. A ton of interview prospects. Like I said, I'm at 155 right now in total. I promise you I've sneaked into a ton of Carolina Panthers. They just don't know it yet, but there are a ton of them that are on that interview series right now. I'm publishing 3 a day because we're running out of time, to get them all out there. So that series is treating me really well. But we've got everything else for you at the Draft Network. Weekly mock drafts, over 300 scouting reports published on the website right now. Our head of scouting won a championship at LSU. So our scouting department is pretty legit. And I always tell them they wouldn't have won it if it wasn't for him. Forget Joe Burrow. It was all about him being on that coaching staff, which is why they won that ring. But so pretty loaded scouting department. We've got, again, 300 prospect scouting reports up there, 155 prospect interviews, 3 of them dropping every day. Mock drafts at least once a week. Soon we're going to be doing more than that. So hit up the draftnetwork.com. We've got you covered for all your draft needs.
You're a Titans fan, is that correct?
I am a Titans guy. That's correct.
All right, so what are they doing in the draft? Who's going number 1?
I mean,
is that Cam
Ward, right? I think
Cam Ward,
it's a no-brainer at this point. The owner, I'll leave you with this quickly. The owner flew the private jet to the private workout with him. I don't remember the last time I've seen that happen. I mean,
might as well be a bullseye.
To go meet him. They've done literally everything they could. When I say, they had a combine formal. They sent everybody and their mother to the pro day. They had him into Nashville already for a pre-draft 30 visit. They had the private workout. They're still going to do Zoom meetings with him over the next couple of weeks. I mean, it's insanity. They're doing everything they can. They've approached this offseason like it's going to be Cam Ward at number 1. So I'll be stunned if it's not.
Good stuff. Thanks for coming on, Justin.
Yeah, Justin, it was a pleasure. You gave us a lot of great stuff, and we love everything you do and appreciate it. You've been sending us the 30 visits and the interest, and it's given us something to talk about. So we appreciate your work. Keep it up, man. It was a good one, and hopefully we can have you back.
Pleasure. You guys know where to find me.
Thank you. All right, so we got a lot to talk about here. He was a great guest. I appreciated his time.
Awesome guest.
Yep.
So
I don't know. I wonder if Justin has ever been told that he reminds people of a young Mel Kiper sometimes with the way that he speaks about prospects.
Yes.
And I mean that in like the most endearing way possible, Justin. If you're still hearing that, I mean that in the most endearing way possible. Like you got very excited when you talked about I think it was Tet McMillan, about be a great pick for the Panthers, great pick for the Saints. It sounded like I was listening to Mel back on ESPN. Like, when he was still very, very coherent and getting things out in a fashionable manner. That was great, man. Justin was terrific.
Yeah, that was outstanding. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I'll give Bryson a break here because I know he's got to go to the bathroom. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We got a super chat to talk about. I know the chat has blown up too as well, so we'll get to some of that. And then we'll talk owners meeting. There's a lot to unpack there. A lot, Carolina has revealed. Or maybe has not revealed. Maybe they're trying to throw out some smoke screens. I don't buy that shit. We'll talk about it in a little bit here. Stand by. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link.
Hey, shout out Low in the chat here because he completely understood what we were talking about with that Mel Kiper thing. He said all Justin had to say was he has the chops like Mel Kiper, and it would have just been like a spot on impersonation. That's terrific, man. Shout out Lo. Thank you for being in here too. And Lo said also W interview, fellas. That was a really good interview, man. I think, and for everyone that missed out on it, go back if you haven't, watched the first half of the show. Go back and check it out, and then follow Justin Melo on Twitter. Really, really good resource of football knowledge, especially during draft time.
So I apologize for neglecting our super chat before. I just wanted to get through. I know Justin was on a time crunch. We kept it a little long. So Zachary Hernandez, I want to get to his super chat. And don't forget, guys, we do have a super chat. Take advantage of it. Zachary Hernandez, back-to-back weeks, $20. We do appreciate you. He says, if Walker or Graham aren't there at 8, I would love for the Panthers to trade back, add Donovan Ezeraku. I said I was watching some stuff on him yesterday, and I sounded it out, his name, then I just fucked it up. And a second,
and it's way easier than you would try to do like phonetically. It's just Ezeraku.
Yeah. It's intimidating when you see it initially. Your thoughts. Also, can you have Julian Council from Locked On Panthers make an appearance? We will discuss that, Zachary, and get back to you. But let's start off with a cheers. We appreciate the super chat.
Cheers, Zach.
And then we'll answer your question here.
Appreciate you, Zach, man.
Zach, man. Zach, man. I like it. Good one, Bryson. No? Come on, that's good. God.
So Ezeraku, I've heard a lot of stuff on this guy. I know Mike K's a huge fan. I know, Ricky, you've talked about him a little bit. When we're talking trade back, do we think this guy is going to be like 15, or do we think, he would be available a little bit later than that, like later teens?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that his range starts in that 14-ish range, 14, 15. Probably not 14 because that's the Colts, and they just drafted Latu. But when you talk about 15, that's the Atlanta Falcons, right? And Atlanta is in desperate need of a pass rusher. I mean, they're second worst. I think we were the worst. They were the second worst as far as pass rush rate. I think that Donovan Ezeraku is a very polished player as far as his pass rush. His arsenal is as deep as anybody in this class, maybe even deeper, to be completely honest. He doesn't have the same raw power and burst and get off that an Abdul Carter has, but Abdul also does not have the technique that Donovan Ezeraku has. He does not have the tricks that Donovan Ezeraku has. The way that he approaches that pass rush is as almost like a veteran NFL player. He knows how to set somebody up. He has double cross chop. He has the underneath bend. He has the power. His power isn't his go-to, and that's the only thing that holds me back from being like insanely high on him, to be completely honest. He's slightly undersized as far as his weight. He's about 247, I think, is what he weighed at 246, something like that. Good length. I think he's right around 33 and a half on the arm length. I think that Donovan Ezeraku could be available as late as 27, 28. He could be looking at him as like a Detroit Lions pickup type of deal. He fits that mold really well too for Dan Campbell. But I would not be shocked, man, if he was a top 15 pick, because he's got no character concerns. He's a terrific teammate from all accounts that you hear about him. And while he doesn't do terrific at setting the edge, and he's not like the most powerful guy, when you let him defend the run in more of a pursuit way without so much of the technical aspects, he's very effective. So I think that he's a very useful player. The Carolina Panthers would be lucky to have a pass rusher like him. When we talk about like what we would do here, right? Jalen Walker, I mean, look, Justin just said it, man. He takes a projection. Like, this isn't a finished product. He's got so much that you love, right? Like the same things that Abdul Carter has that you love. Just this violence and burst and athleticism that pops off the screen. But I mean, I don't know, man. He's still got to prove it. And Donovan has had years and years of proving it. So he's a good prospect.
And Ricky, do you think, like, same question I asked about Jaylin Noel to Justin? Do you think Ezeraku is a player that maybe NFL teams are higher on than, the public consensus with mock drafts and things that we're seeing right now? Because I've seen mock drafts from like Daniel Jeremiah and other guys, higher, rated media members in regards to mock drafts that have Ezeraku going higher than what people think.
Right. And that's, Bryson, that's a really interesting question to pose because there is such a conversation to be had about a really good football player that maybe doesn't test exactly as high as other people or doesn't have the same physical traits. Although I believe it was the 3-cone drill that Donovan Izaraku did that before Mike Green did his, he was like blowing people out of the water with it. I think he was like a 6'8", 7" or something like that. It was remarkable. It was a great time at the combine. And that kind of catches people's eyes, that short area quickness. It's that ability to get up and move, right? I think that when you talk about wide receiver and edge both, because you talk about Jaylin, Noel, and Donovan, is it worth losing out on maybe some of the high-end athleticism and high-end size thresholds that NFL teams covet so much? Like, we hear why would a team bank on Shamar Stewart? Why would a team bank on Mykel Williams? It's because they have physical abilities and talents that you can't teach. And that if they can harness and if their coaches are worth their salt, they should get more out of that than you should get out of a guy who doesn't have those same physical attributes, right? So, yeah, I think the teams could be higher on him because they see way less risk and they still see improvement ability. Like, it's not like Donovan Izaraku's a finished product. He's going to get bigger and stronger, too, on an NFL meal plan and working out and not going to school, right? He's a 23-year-old, man. When you start being a grown man doing it as a profession, you're going to gain a little bit of muscle. So, yeah, I think they could be higher on him. I wouldn't be shocked, but I also wouldn't be shocked again if he's in the tail end of the first round.
My biggest thing with all these with trade back, and Carolina wants a trade back. Yeah, it sounds great. We all want another pick, but who's trading up? Like, who's going to go up to go and get someone? Is it Shedeur Sanders? There's been rumblings today. I think Schefter put out something on a podcast where Cleveland and New York Giants might not be interested in Sanders. I don't buy that. I think Sanders is probably going to the Giants if I had to guess right now. But if those teams aren't interested in him, does the team try to, leap? Someone's said in the chat, leap the Saints. I think that's a possibility because I think Saints look long and hard at him. Sanders, I'm talking about, at 9 if he falls to them. Would you guys agree with me on that? I just feel it very odd that the Saints are going in this year and like, we are 100% sold on Derek Carr. I have a hard time believing that.
I think that the Saints should look at what the Falcons did last year with Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. And they should say, hey, we didn't know if Michael Penix Jr. was going to be there or not, right? But when he fell into our lap, maybe that wasn't our exact first plan, but it ended up kind of working out for him because Kirk Cousins showed who he was again and coming off of that injury. And now they have a guy that they feel good about, and they didn't have to wait a whole nother year and develop a rookie, right? He gets an off season. He got to sit for a little bit and develop. Maybe that's what the Saints should do with a guy like Shedeur. Shedeur is an accurate thrower. He's got some limitations. I've got a second-round grade on him, but again, I've got second-round grades on most. I only have 24 first-round grades. So, like, after those 24, man, it's not a pretty thing. Not that a second-round grade is bad. I hate when that connotation happens too, right? Like, oh, I don't have a top 10 grade, so he must be a bad player. No, he's a good football player. But yeah, I could see them being interested, but I also think that the Saints have a lot of needs. So do they really take that pick on a quarterback, or do they wait and maybe go for a guy like Jalen Milroe at the top of the second?
All right, let's get into the owners' meetings this week because I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there's been a lot revealed with the Panthers and a little too much, honestly. But let's start here with one of the bigger headlines, and that was, Dave Canales talking about this wide receiver room. And he said he believes Xavier Legette can be that guy. We're going to start with the wide receiver guru, Bryson, who would really love Tet McMillan at 8. What do you think of his comments? I didn't say everything that Canales said in there. He did talk about Metcalf, so there's another layer to this. But your thoughts on his comments, and I believe it was on the Up and Adams show with was it on the Up and Adams show? Am I making that up?
I believe so. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Shout out to her and her podcast because she does some great work, and there's a lot of things she gets on her podcast that coaches reveal. and even players when she gets them on. So I love her
I mean,
work.
would y'all not fold a little bit if she started asking you questions too? Let's just
Shout out to her. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Shout out to her.
I get it. Yeah.
Bryson, what do you think of these comments by Dave Canales?
Listen, man, I find it hard to comprehend a team that sent out feelers on DK Metcalf and then falls back on, Xavier gets that guy, and we believe in him. A couple weeks prior, they were trying to send out feelers on a potential number one wide receiver in DK Metcalf for this team. Look, Xavier Leggett, I apologize. Xavier Leggett is a wide receiver that they traded up just a year ago in the first round to select, and they had legitimate belief in. And I'm not giving up on the guy. I'm really not. But I don't know at this point, like the timeline he's on in regards to his growth and development in the NFL versus Bryce Young's growth and development in the NFL. We saw Bryce Young last season take leaps and strides in regards to a franchise quarterback. And we saw Xavier Leggett make some growth throughout the season, but I don't know if they're on the exact same timeline. And I don't agree with the sentiment that Bryce Young, yes, he made growth with this wide receiver room and maybe mid, quote unquote, or not the best in the NFL. And while he did that with this room, let's continue that because the defense was so bad, and we saw that growth with Bryce Young. I think when you have a franchise quarterback, which I believe wholeheartedly that Bryce Young is, I've said that since day one. I think you got to continue to add pieces around him to continue that growth. The most important position on a team, without a doubt, is the quarterback, and to not put people in position, players in position to continue that growth, I think is a mistake. And I'm not saying Xavier Leggett's not going to be a good wide receiver in this league, but I'm concerned about his drops and his injuries and other things that have come up this offseason in regards to if this guy's going to be the number one, then we need to see more from that moving forward. And I just haven't seen that at this point. I think, if you're sitting at 8 and a guy like Ted McMillan is there, I think Ted McMillan coming out of college is a much higher rated wide receiver prospect than Xavier Leggett was. I think Ted McMillan brings more to the team than Xavier Leggett does at this point moving forward. And I'm not saying, again, that Xavier Leggett can't be a good player, and I really think he can. When you're 6'1", 6'2", 220, and can run a 4.3, I think there's some upside to that. But what we saw last season it was frustrating, and I think a lot of fans agree with that. And I think rolling forward with what you have at that position and aging Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker, who I was thoroughly impressed with as an undrafted free agent, for the Carolina Panthers last season, arguably the best wide receiver on this team. I think you can add more to that room. I really do. And it's frustrating because a lot of fans, I think, are in the same boat that we want to see Bryce with a legitimate number one wide receiver. You have quarterbacks across the league that their franchises see them as that player, as that number one quarterback, as that franchise quarterback, and they immediately add players around them to supersede that growth, to make that growth go extremely quick. And I think to have an offense or a team in general that is like, okay, we know what we have in Bryce Young. He's a good player. Let's continue what we have on this offensive side of the ball. Our defense was complete dog shit last season, which I agree with. Trust me, I'm not disagreeing at all. It was the worst in NFL history in stopping the run, right? But they've added pieces in free agency. They have spent a ton of money there. They tried to get Milton Williams, and then they pivoted to 3 or 4 other players to that defensive line. Derek Brown is coming back. I just don't want them to neglect adding to the offense and helping Bryce Young with that continued growth that we hope to see, because that is the most important position on this team. And I think if you roll in next season with an aging Adam Thielen, Xavier Leggett as your proposed number one, and Rico Dowdle added as the only other offensive weapon new to the team, I think that's a mistake. I really do. I think you're neglecting the most important position on the team. And I think that it's not good for the growth of this franchise in general. So while I believe in Xavier Legette and I think that he can be a good player, I'm not sure what that timeline is looking like in regards to Bryce Young's growth and Xavier Legette's growth. I think you can't, just because you traded up in the first round last season to draft Xavier Legette, I don't think you can force that on your franchise quarterback and hope that things work out. I think you got to continue to add to that room and make things more beneficial for your quarterback moving forward. I really do. I hope that's what the attitude or the thought process that they take, but I'm not sure that it is at this point.
Ricky?
I'll phrase my thoughts this way. Bryce Young was benched at the beginning of last year, right? Because of very poor play. He played a mixed bag at best his rookie year. And I'm a Bryce Young fan, right? So I mean all of this like just from a sincere standpoint, like from a team and from a fan standpoint. But Bryce Young still has yet to put together anything more than an 8-game stretch of looking adequate and at times very good, right? Like that's just the reality of it. And I'm not trying to say that I don't believe in Bryce, but that is the reality of it. And as fans, we are very quick to say we got to do more for Bryce, right? And I believe that too. I believe you always should do more for your quarterback. And it doesn't have to be Bryce Young. It should be every quarterback. Give your quarterback weapons. Like that's what any NFL team should do. Where I have a little bit of a separation, I think, with not just what Bryson, I think, was saying about that. And I don't think Bryson's wrong, though, by the way. If you draft Tet, I will be happy. Like, I think that if you want to add weapons, if you draft Luther Burden, I'll be ecstatic. I think Luther Burden is who I want if you're going to draft a wide receiver, to be completely honest, because I think that he's more of what makes this offense explode. But Xavier Legette was a first-round pick, and I know they traded up just to get the fifth-year option, whatever, so he's a second-round pick. Okay, he was the first pick of the second round. Like, that's one pick different, and the number in front of round is one different, right? The sentiment is still the same. They were very high on him. This is a guy that, if he were in the draft this year, would be a top 3 wide receiver prospect. Like, if you look at his grades from last year, he would be a top 3 wide receiver prospect in this draft. And I think that he would probably have some people that like him just as much, if not more, than Tet McMillan, because you remember last year, a lot of the conversation around Keon Coleman and those guys who were ranked high is they were too slow and they couldn't separate. And then Tet McMillan has similar things from a testing standpoint that those guys have. When you try to trade for T. Higgins, I understand it 100%. That's a proven NFL player. If you try to trade for DK Metcalf, I understand it 100%. That's a proven NFL player. Tet McMillan is a question mark at best. That is what every rookie is. The same way that Xavier Legette was a question mark. The same way that Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Keon Coleman, any of these guys were question marks, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. was a can't-miss prospect. Did anyone think that he had a can't-miss year last season? I don't think so. I think that there was disappointment there, right? So if you take Tet McMillan at 8 just to appease Bryce Young, and look, I'm not trying to put this out in the universe, but I'm going to be serious about it. If Bryce Young doesn't have a good year, if he doesn't continue to progress, what then? And your defense is still just ass because we were the worst defense in the league. Like, we're banking a whole lot on this guarantee that Bryce is who we all want him to be, right? And I believe in it. But I'm just not there of saying a rookie wide receiver gets him to the next spot. If this coaching staff is who they say they are, and they have done this in the past with guys with lesser pedigree than Xavier Legette, they should be able to develop him, and he should be able to be a competent NFL starter. Is he going to be a dominant one? I don't know. Is Tet McMillan? I don't know. But either way, this coaching staff would be tasked with developing either or both of those guys. So let them develop him, right? Here's what I will say, Bryson, that I agree with you on 100%. The timeline for Xavier Legette has shifted, in my opinion. You have now endorsed him as your Mike Evans and your DK Metcalf in consecutive off seasons. That's what you've called him. He had no wrist surgery because it wasn't anything worth having. He had foot surgery, which is already healed up enough to the point where he's out riding horses and wearing 2 cleats and out there getting work in at Bank of America. And I'm not judging him, man. Live your life, dude. You're a human being and you're in the offseason. Do your thing. But if he's healed up enough to do those things, he's healed up enough that I expect him to be 100% on opening day. And that's the bottom line of it, because Bryson is 100% right, man. His timeline has to be sped up a little bit here. And I know Dave Canales said, like, we're letting him develop in his own rate. His own rate is a 25-year-old second-year wide receiver. He's 3 years older than his quarterback, who's going into his third year. Xavier Legette needs to be an impact player this year. And this coaching staff has set him up to be that with their words and their actions. Now, I am going to let that play itself out, though, because I still believe Xavier Legette can be that, if you want my honest opinion. When I talked about what Bryce Young did as a rookie, I hung my hat on those highs. I didn't look at all the other stuff, man, because it was a bad situation around him. I saw some highs out of Xavier Legette. I saw him progress in areas that I was worried about him coming out in college, and he looked way better than I anticipated him looking in those areas. The drops, that's super concerning, but it's also super new. So I think that's something you could shake off. I think that's something that's mental. I think you could get back on that horse, no pun intended, and get out there and show that the hands catcher, the sure thing red zone contested catch threat that he was in South Carolina, I think he could be here in North Carolina, in Charlotte. I just think that is something that I'm willing to gamble on, and that he has the tools. And if they could develop Jalen Coker, you still got Adam Thielen. I don't think that this is some atrocious room if the development happens how it's supposed to happen. But that's a whole lot of banking on if. So I get it, man. I get the skepticism, but I'm not out on Xavier Legette in a way that I think that Tet is a better prospect than Xavier is right this second.
And I think we all can agree that if Tet was the pick at 8, we would be happy with it. Like, there would be no gripe about it. I just can't wrap my head around how bad this defense was last year and discount that. And I think fans are doing that way too quickly. And a lot of those fans are the same ones that were pissing and moaning about this defense all season long last year. And it was historically bad, one of the worst ever in the history of this game. 80 plus years, whatever you want to count it as. They were that bad. And to say to Sean Wharton, a guy they overpaid for, whether you look at it or not, and maybe, he plays like a Robert Hunt this year and no one talks about it, but he was overpaid. The guy was making $3, $4, $5 million last year. They paid him $54 million. Like, they overpaid for him. They went out and got a Bobby Brown, and some other guys as well. But like, those guys don't break the bank for me. They still don't break the bank. They might add depth to this defense, but that doesn't. I mean, there is some high level talent at the top of this draft when it comes to defense that if you overlook, I think it's going to bite them in the ass in the long run. I really do.
I think a lot of fans are overlooking the fact that you're getting arguably the best defensive tackle in the league back, though, on that defensive line, and Derek Brown. Like,
yeah, but when Derek Brown was in there last year, that run defense still looked like shit. I mean, it still looked bad. I mean, it didn't.
I agree. I mean, but with the additions of Bobby Brown and Patrick Jones and these guys that we've talked about, I think they've spent a lot of money on that defensive line, and rightfully so. I don't disagree with that at all. Right.
But are you satisfied going into this year with those guys as the starters? And
I don't know if adding Jalen Walker or Michael Williams at 8 makes that much of a difference for me in regards to if I'm satisfied with the defense or not moving forward. I think in my opinion, it's just the way I believe football should be played. I think adding to the offense and helping your franchise quarterback is more important to me than the potential of adding a guy from Georgia in regards to Jalen Walker or Michael Williams. We just had Justin Melo who said these guys are more of a let's hope they develop potential players with a defensive coach that is on the hot seat, right? Ejiro Evero is not cemented as the defensive coordinator in Carolina. He's coming off a season where he coached the worst defense in the NFL. And these guys need development. I'm not sure that outweighs, in my opinion at least, that outweighs adding to helping your quarterback who has shown legitimate growth. And, after being benched top 5 in the league in big time throws throughout the last couple weeks of the season. Like, this guy needs help. In the wide receiver room, if we go into next season with Xavier Legette being 1 and Adam Thielen being 2 or whatever, however you want to grade it, and with Jalen Coker, that's the bottom 5 wide receiver room, no doubt. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Like, those guys have to prove it. And Adam Thielen's aging. Xavier Legette is a question mark. Jalen Coker is a question mark. And we've talked about Jatavion Sanders and Tommy Tremble and these guys. Like, there's not much help for Bryce Young on that offense at all. Chuba Hubbard was a good player last season. I think he can continue to build off of that. And I think Rico Dowdle, all the shit I've talked about him, I was a hater, right? But I think he's a decent player. And you can rely on that run game a little bit and that offensive line and helping that. But if you want Bryce Young, the most important player in this franchise, without a doubt, like, if Bryce Young does not continue to develop, this team's going nowhere. It doesn't matter what the defense does or doesn't do, right? The offense has to score points. And I'm not sold on the fact that Jalen Walker or Michael Williams is going to make that difference on the defense in regards to adding a top level wide receiver, whether it's Luther Burden or
in a down year wide receiver class. Like,
that's what we believe now. That's what we believe now.
Everyone wants the shiny new toy. Like, all the fans, literally, you look at Twitter feed the entire year. Most fans bitched about this defense. That was the top gripe. And now we get into close to the draft, and we have fans pushing for a wide receiver in a down year of class. Like, that's how stupid this fan base is sometimes. It makes no sense to me at all. And it's laughable because we sit here and we talk about this team. And my biggest thing, and it goes back to the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs. Who won that game for the Eagles? It was a dominant front four on the defensive side of the ball that tore up the best quarterback, hands down, in the NFL that we may have ever seen in our lifetime. They dominated that game. Defense is big, and you can have the best quarterback in the world in Patrick Mahomes, but if you can't protect him, and you have a defense that's going against him, that's just, they're sending for and getting pressure, you're not going to succeed. And it was proven this past year. And that's what is on the top of my mind. It's a copycat league. Carolina needs a stout defensive front. And at this point, did they add pieces? Did they add depth? 100%. But they still don't have enough for me to be comfortable and say, there's a guy on this team on the edge spot that's going to go out and get 10 sacks a year. I mean, we got an aging Jadeveon Clowney who's going to be gone after this season. We have a DJ Wanham who has 1 year left on his deal. We don't know where he's going to be after this, coming off a major injury. There's no one else there besides Tershawn Wharton that we still don't know what he's going to do. I mean, that guy showed out when he had Chris Jones aside of him. So we got to take that into account. We had Bobby Brown, who had one of the top defensive lines in LA. They had some of the best defensive linemen, and that guy was making plays. Like, we got to take that into account too. And I know, I get it. They have Derek Brown aside of him. That's going to help greatly. But that edge room it's thin, man. It's still thin. Patrick Jones ain't going to, I mean, I don't think that guy's going to be an answer for a 10+ sack season.
No, you're right.
So, like,
you're right.
I don't know.
Well, that's when we talk about the defense too, it's so tough, man, to like center it into one argument or the other, because our run defense was historically bad, but we also have zero actual pass rush, like no pressure.
Yeah.
And we have no individual player that can get to the quarterback in under 3 seconds. And when you talk about what the Eagles did, it's generating pressure with their front, which allowed their secondary, who is a very talented secondary, to be able to do all of the things with extra people back there, right? They were able to keep more in coverage. We have so many times, man, that we have so many people in the box because we have to. That's why we played single high as much as we did, I think. And that's why you spend the money on a Trayvon Merrick, right? But then when you look at what we're doing from a defensive standpoint, I just think you have to get a pass rusher in here. I'm not saying that it has to be at pick 1. If you don't want it to be pick 1, then it doesn't have to be. But the thing about the pass rush not being at pick 1, it's going to be slim pickings at 57. Like, you're just not going to have the options that you have in this draft at 57 that you have at 8. We're going to have our choice, essentially, of pass rushers outside of Abdul Carter. I mean, literally your choice. You make a good evaluation. Be what you were supposed to be as an NFL scouting department as an NFL front office and a defensive coordinator and find the guy that's going to win as a pass rusher in the NFL, because there's a lot of them in this draft. I truly think that you could get 2 pass rushers in this draft. But to do that, you got to start at 8, I think. I'm not mad at wide receiver, but here's what I'll ask about. Why are we thinking that this wide receiver group can't be good with a second-round wide receiver? I know that is a narrative right now that is going on, is that, yeah, but Carolina's always bad with, second-round wide receivers. Lately, yeah, 100%, man. Like, I completely acknowledge that. Like, it has been painful, and we've got a little bit of, like, PTSD from the Jonathan Mingos and the Terrace Marshalls. But we just heard Justin Melo from the Draft Network wax poetically about Jaylin Noel. We know that we have a top 30 with him. We know that his skill set is way closer to a Luther Burden than it is a Tet McMillan. And we just talked about how a skill set like that could open up the offense and how it's something that's void and missing for this Panthers team. Kyle Williams is a guy that everybody likes. I mean, there are playmakers in this draft that you can get outside of the first round. I think that we just have to stop looking at things strictly from here's how much money we spent on this position, so here's how good that player is. We overpay for players all the time. That's a Carolina tax. So I don't look at Tershawn Wharton and say we're set on the defensive front because we spent $17 million on Tershawn Wharton. I think we spent $17 million because we had to get somebody else in here, and the pickings were slim, and we got one. I think that's ultimately what happened. He's a good player, but he's a role player. He's a rotational player. Then I think when you look at, Adam Thielen is aging. He is, but he was also pretty damn good when he was on the field. And if Xavier Legette can develop, I know that I'm harping on that, but there is no reason to think that Xavier Legette can't be as good, if not better, than Tet McMillan next year than Tet would be as a rookie. That's, I guess, my fallback that I keep coming back to, is that I just think that we bypass Xavier a lot here, and I'm just not sure I'm there yet. I have questions about XL, but I'm not sure I'm at the point where I'm like, dude, he's just not going to work for us. He can't be the guy. I still think that he can be, and that if you get a Jaylin Noel and then have Coker as your 3rd or 4th best receiver, that's not a terrible look. People love Jalen Coker. If he's your 3rd or 4th best wideout, why is that bad?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree, Ricky, but I'm just not sure if I'm at the point where I'm betting on XL to make that growth to be the true number 1 wide receiver.
And that's fair.
Like Canales said, that's quoted here, that guy. Right? In my opinion, I believe that the depth of this draft, the more talent is at the edge room than the wide receiver room in this draft, right? We've talked about guys like O2 and the dude that we talked about earlier, the name slipping my mind, but like I feel like the depth of the edge room goes deeper than that wide receiver room. And while there's guys like Jaylin Noel or Royals or other guys like potentially available, Kyle Williams in the 2nd or 3rd round, I think that top level wide receiver talent is a step above of what we see from those guys, and of it possibly available in that 2nd or 3rd round. So, Luther Burden or Tet McMillan or Matthew Golden, I think those guys are different than those guys available in the 2nd and 3rd round. And I think that edge depth is so deep. Like we're talking about O2. We just talked to Justin about him. Like O2 could potentially be a 2nd or 3rd round pick and come in and immediately make a difference on that defensive line. Like, especially in Carolina.
Did say that he was very developmental, though, right? It's going to be his first year playing a position for a full season, and it'll be in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
That's tough,
That's fair, but there's other guys. I
agree with you though.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think there's other guys that in that position of the edge room that are just leaps and bounds above a wide receiver in that 2nd or 3rd round. That we could select.
Look, I'll
Curtis,
say
why'd you get that comment down? You didn't want to answer that one?
I entertained that question. I thought it was stupid. But anyway, I want to say this. I was one of the biggest skeptics of Xavier Legette. I was the one who was criticizing him before the season, and you both told me to pump the brakes on him. So I've had criticism for this guy, but I also, if I'm going to give Bryce Young some leeway like I did this season, Xavier Legette deserves the same amount of leeway that Bryce Young has. Correct. And I get it. Like I'm with Ricky on this one, and that's with Legette. I thought he did things that I didn't think he had in his toolbox this year. And there was plays where Bryce missed him. There was we're a couple plays if Leggett catches the ball away from saying, "Holy shit, this guy had a really good rookie season." He makes that play in Philly. He makes that play. I think it was in Tampa Bay late in the game. He makes that play. He makes a play in Kansas City, a drop here or there. We're talking about a whole different rookie year for him. And I do think he needs to take a major step this year because this team has put him on a pedestal. There's no doubt about it. He can be that guy. That's what Canales said yesterday. He can be that guy. Okay, now we need to see that guy.
Yeah,
so
it's
I'm not
now or never now.
That's not. I'm not out on him, but I like that step needs to happen. But I mean, I'm skeptical too. Like I have concerns about injury. I'm still wondering about that wrist injury that just mysteriously went away. I'm still worried about him and, galloping on horses and he just had surgery on his leg. Like, that concerns me. I get it. Like that should be warranted. But
it just seems so crazy.
It does. Yeah. It does. It really does.
You gotta love it. Like he's got one of the best personalities ever.
He's him, man. You can't deny that.
That man is not going to change for no one. And
I'm not mad though at this idea that we need to give Bryce help. Like I'm not trying to advocate for like, hey, no, he's got enough. Leave him where he is. That's not what I'm saying. I think you absolutely have to add, and I think you should add a tight end and a wide receiver, and I think they will. I just think that for me, I'm looking at it from a different place. And Bryson, I do understand your argument though about like, hey, that first round talent is going to be better than the second round talent you can get. I think that's probably a fair point, right? But it also we don't know what any of these players will be in the draft, first of all, right? Like,
yeah, that's fair.
It's all right. Personal preference, and it's all how we view them. Some of us believe Tet will automatically be better than XL, and some of us may be right about that, right? We won't know until it plays out on the field. But then some of us also believe that a guy like Jaylin Noel can do just as much for this offense that Tet McMillan could potentially as a rookie if Xavier Leggett does what he can do. And what Bryson or what Curtis was just talking about of giving that grace, Bryson, you asked for what? And I hear you, man, because like, dude, I had so many frustrated moments with XL last year, but I did have so many other moments where I was like, oh my God, Bryce, you have to hit that. You got to hit that. X did exactly what he was supposed to do. You got to hit that for him.
That's
right.
Fair. You're right.
And so like, if I can be so confident and so, we got to help Bryce. He's our guy. We got to do everything for him. I also got to be able to point and say, hey, Bryce could have done more for X. Like he could have done a little bit more and taken a little bit of heat off of him for some of the misses. The margin of error is still so small with this Carolina offense. Yeah. I think that once Bryce and XL take a step together, maybe they're doing that with this offseason, that familiarity happens. I mean, Bryce is an anticipatory thrower. It's all about timing. He needs to understand where his receivers are. We've talked to multiple people that have said that to us, right? That is something that comes with time. XL was thrust into a position I don't think he was ready to play. I think that they asked too much for him initially, and now I think he's got his feet to the fire. And, hey, time to put up or shut up, man. Got to produce.
Alex, your comments got me laughing out loud, man. You got some sarcastic shit. That's
the one difference that I'll say about DJ Wanham and all these other guys, DJ Wanham and DJ Johnson and Pat Jones, is they've been in the NFL for over 3 years now. And we're talking about a rookie. And DJ Johnson was a third-round pick that nobody wanted. That was a mistake. I don't know, man.
And we haven't even talked about how XL was transitioned to the one after the Deontay Johnson debacle, and that was a whole nother thing that threw this whole thing into a wrench of I think where they wanted him to be in this offense this past year. But let's move on because we got a ton of other stuff to talk about. And we'll jump right to the flip side of that. And this was on the Kay and Adams show or Up and Adams show. What is her? I got to get this show.
Kay Adams. Kay Adams is Up and Adams.
Up and Adams. So I have been saying her. Okay. The Up and Adams show, Dave Canales said, I think there's just some intangibles about the guy that are really special. He was referring to Jalen Walker, and he was talking about, you ask any Georgia Bulldog about Jalen, and he said every single Georgia Bulldog we talked to, they talk about Jalen Walker. They talk about the accountability, the way he pulls the whole group together, the way he plays with his head on fire. What is it? You call it the draft crush. This is the draft crush for Curtis. Comments are your reaction to Canales' comments. Let's start with Bryson here. With Jalen Walker and what he had to say about him, ironically, on April Fool's.
Yeah. Ironically, right? I tweeted like it's hard not to like Jalen Walker, and I can completely like understand why people have this love for him at 8. I'm not sure he's there at 8. With all this draft hype moving into draft weekend at the end of April, I think this guy is extremely well spoken. I've watched a lot of his film coming into this show over the past couple of weekends. He's a good player. He really is. And he's coming from a highly touted Georgia program. And I think that while he may have some, developmental things that he needs to take care of on the NFL level, I don't think there's going to be any issue in regards to him attaining that, is because of the kind of player and person that he is and leader that he has shown in the field. And what Dave Canales talked about with his comments, like, this guy is a leader. He really is. And he's got the drive, he's got the will, and I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I really do. If I'm sitting there at 8 and there's no wide receiver available, Tet is taken, and Mason Graham's off the board, Jalen Walker is absolutely, I tweeted it, not a bad pick at all. Like, I would be ecstatic with Jalen Walker at 8 because I think that he's going to be a good player. I really do. And I think he brings a lot. Like, I think, Ricky, you tweeted it, and it really made me like think about it. There's a difference between like a linebacker edge hybrid than there is a safety linebacker hybrid.
Huge difference.
You made me think about that a lot. Like Isaiah Simmons versus Jalen Walker, right? Like, that's so true, because like Hassan Reddick versus an Isaiah Simmons on the NFL level, like, these guys are different. And I think that versatility, that when you bring an edge versus a linebacker versus a safety, is completely different for an NFL roster. And I think that Jalen Walker would bring that for this team. And I don't have any doubt that this guy's going to come in immediately and make a difference on an NFL team. I don't have any doubt with that whatsoever. But, I think still I support.
I like him at 8.
I'm not going to be mad. I'm really not. I promise you, I would not be mad. I'm not going to be upset. Like, I hate to admit it, but Curtis knows, and I can't dodge it. When the Carolina Panthers took J.C. Horn instead of drafting Justin Fields, I left the room. I was upset. I literally was mad. And it's not going to be that situation. It's not, because I really do like Jalen Walker. I mean, there's no dislike there at all for my opinion for him at 8. I think if he's there and you have options like Tet or Malachi Starks or other guys like this, like Mason Graham's off the board, I think Jalen Walker is not a bad pick whatsoever. But in my opinion, if I'm drafting at 8, I'm taking the wide receiver. But I'm not going to be mad at a guy like Jalen Walker. Now, if it's Michael Williams, I'm going to have some question marks. I really am. I'm not as high on Michael as I am on Jalen Walker. But I think Jalen Walker is extremely well-spoken. He's a leader. He's got a lot of intangibles that you want at that position, the flexibility. I have question marks about not him as a player, but the defensive coordinator in Carolina and what positions he can put him in to be successful.
All right, you guys can fire us on the super chats because we totally missed this one. We got caught off guard with the wide receiver conversation. LaDarian Carr, we appreciate you greatly. I apologize, this is late. He says choose Tet first and Princely second, or Jaylin and Noel. So he kind of likes both. He's teetering in between, but I do want to give you a cheers, and Ricky will give you a Panthers growl.
Cheers, LaDarian.
So,
appreciate that, LaDarian. I apologize, man. We were caught up in that conversation. I started scrolling through to make sure I didn't miss any more of the comments, and I saw it immediately. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. That's a really tough hypothetical first, LaDarian. Tet and Princely would be terrific, because I think that Princely is probably one of the last high upside edge rushers that you can find, probably in the second round in this draft. I think that it's like him and like Braden Swinson, both of whom I think have potential to even creep into that first if a team really loves them. But I think that they're where you kind of like hit that drop off after them. Then you start looking at some other guys. So Princely, I love. Tet is a really good prospect. Look, and that's the other thing, man. When I'm sitting here talking to Bryce about it, Tet is my 14th ranked prospect. I don't dislike him, dude. I like Tet. He's a good prospect. I
You hate him.
I hate him. I hate
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
man. I'm such a negative Nancy. But for me personally, I do think that I go Jalen Walker and Jalen Noel, but part of that is also because I'm higher on Jalen Noel. I have been for a little while.
Look at us, Ricky, agreeing. It's like that
that's
meme.
terrible.
Like, look
God
at
damn
us.
it.
I fucking hate it so much.
Now
I'm
I
about
have
to leave the show.
Yeah.
I'm about to delete my account. Like,
well, the
you
good
guys-
news is, Bryson, you already have a new home with your biggest fan in the chat that is already
there's
trying to
that.
actively
That's
recruit
right.
you over there. So
Yeah, we're still
you guys
trying to
already
figure
have
out
your
what
thing
happened
going.
after that episode.
No, I don't want to know. That's like a thing in Vegas. Like whatever happens in that internet
tight
bar,
lip
it
over
happens.
here. You won't get it out of me.
That was some hangover type shit.
It didn't seem very tight-lipped that night, if you know what I mean. But sorry. Yeah, that was inappropriate. Look,
Ricky, any
Bryson
comment
you
though
made me
on
laugh,
this? Talking about Dave Canales' comment on Jalen Walker.
Yeah, look, I think that this is what I have said from the beginning when it came to the intangibles with Jaylin. And that's why I instantly made the connection of like, he makes so much sense for Carolina. They put so much emphasis, man, on like the person and the intangibles. And we don't have a vocal leader in the locker room. They even said they wanted a vocal leader in the locker room. But remove that also, right? Jalen's a good football player, man. And he has the potential to be a game wrecker of a pass rusher. I mean, like a game wrecker. You see the way that he moves and you just watch him, like, get out of your like evaluator moment for a second and just watch the games with plain eyes. That dude is wicked out there. Like he is flying around. When you see some of the moves that he makes, you see how quick he is closing. That looks like an NFL game changer to me. I think that Canales has such a hard time. He's like Honest Abe, man. We should have, when we did the thumbnail, I should have taken Abraham Lincoln's face and superimposed Dave Canales on it and called it Honest Dave. Because this dude won't tell a lie, man. Like he just won't do it. And God bless Kay Adams. And, you know, I know that Bryson can't say much and I can't either, and neither can Curtis, but she's going to get something out of somebody. I could tell you that much, man. And
Amen.
Dave sat there and he started doing his thing where he was all, oh yeah, sure. And then all of a sudden she's like, come on, you didn't give me anything. And he goes, we're going to take Jalen Walker at 8. And then at 57, if you turn the cameras off, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen next. Like,
what else do you want to know, Kay Adams? I'm here, baby.
right.
I'm here.
And by the way,
But
here's my
that's so-
social. I'm going to write that down on a piece of paper. And
That's
you can
been the
steal my
whole
identity.
conversation of these last couple of weeks with us is, are they going to change the tune from last year? And here we are, and we know 4 weeks out that Walker's the pick. It's like we haven't learned anything from last year.
Then you hear the NFL people, though, and they're like, if Walker's even there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very interesting to bring that up. And when Justin mentioned the Patriots, it was the first time I had heard the Patriots name linked. But here's what's so interesting. If Abdul Carter were to slip to 4, I think they'd take Abdul in a second. And there are some play comp style similarities between Abdul and Jaylin, and even their football story of moving from an off-ball backer to an edge. Like, this is a very similar trajectory that if they love Abdul, why wouldn't they love the guy with the Georgia hat on that does the same thing and plays in the tougher conference, right? And I get it, like that's helmet scouting, but there is a thing to be said about what Georgia players have turned into, especially ones that flash at the college level, right? I think that is a really interesting thing, that if they are set and they've got, you know, their new coach over there, if they've got a interest in bolstering that defense and getting an edge rusher, man, maybe Jaylin doesn't make it. Yeah, New England.
I think the Raiders might get him too. I know the Genty stuff is out there, but man, I don't know, man. Bryson said it before. I'm starting to think more and more that Jaylin might not make it.
He might not, man. It's going to be really interesting. And so, I understand why Dave likes him as much as he does. And these guys also were mystified with Jonathan Mingo's personality, for crying out loud, and it shot him up to 39. So if Jonathan Mingo came in there and told you a good joke and he got picked 39, yeah, they're 100% interested on Jalen Walker, who is a coach's son and talks football.
Except for Morgan, but
except for our general manager, except for that guy.
Not Dave.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
that both of you are sitting there at 8, and it's Michael Williams versus Ted McMillan, and you're going Michael Williams. Please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that.
I don't mind Michael. I think his injury played a lot into his
Please don't tell me
his step back. I don't know if you want to even call it a step back last year, but he did have a slow get off, I thought. And I was talking to JJ about this today. You look at his 2023 stuff, and he was shooting off the ball, and then he had that leg injury this past year. But I mean, I tweeted this out yesterday. I was watching Michael more yesterday, and I was watching that Florida game in 2023. And I just kept seeing 11 pop off, and I'm like, damn, like he's still making plays. And Jaylin Walker was in a more limited role in 2023. He wasn't getting the full on snaps he was getting this past season. So, yeah, I mean, those are my two guys.
Can I shout out someone saying David Walker's name in the chat, because that's my guy, and I'm just very happy to see somebody else talk about him. It might even be a joke to Roman's comment before. I just realized now I'm an idiot. It says, guys, Walker will be there at 8, and he says, David Walker? Yep. That's a good retort, first of all. Pets in a bathtub.
I do want to throw
Top
this
name
out
on
there.
YouTube, too. Pets in a bathtub. Fucking
I do want to say
Amazing.
this. I really would enjoy a beer with Panther Bo. Like, we need to get this guy to Charlotte and have a couple beers. He seems like a cool dude. I was just throwing Alex, maybe not so much, but Panther.
Get in a space
No,
with
Alex
Panther
for
Bo at,
sure.
like, midnight.
Panther Bo, we could take along. I don't know about Alex.
Alex, you're invited. Ignore Curtis.
All right, let's move on here to this. This is a little update on the Ike Ekwonu front. I think we got our left tackle. That's what Dave Canales said this week at the owners' meetings. Ricky, we'll start with you on this. You know, there was rumblings out there that they could try to get a long-term deal done before that 5th-year option comes. I believe that's right after the draft they have to make that decision. I think it's in May. Do you think Ike Ekwonu is the left tackle of the future?
I mean, I think they just told you they think he is, right?
I'm asking you.
No, I don't matter. Whatever I say is just something I'm saying back
you don't.
here.
That sounds like
you do,
the
Ricky.
question.
Yeah, you do, Ricky.
I'm sitting in a home office. I just snuck my second beer out of a Yeti so that it was inconspicuous. Like, I'm sitting across from a fucking cat tree, guys. Like, what I say doesn't matter. Yeah, there you go. Let's show off the goods. The little bow body. Cheers, man.
I'm sorry.
Listen, I think that Ike is a terrific run blocker. I think that's very important for this offense. I still think that Ike has work to do when left on an island, but I think that he looked much more competent having competency next to him. And that's a big part for me, is that an offensive line is a unit. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game, right? But when the rest of that 49ers offensive line was shit last year, how did that offensive line look even with Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the game? Shit. So if you're building from the inside out and you've got your interior offensive line, I still think that I would even consider drafting Jared Wilson this year if he falls to me. I still think that's an approach that I would take, is shoring up that center position. But having what you have right now, I think that he can work. I'm not mad at Ike. I'm not mad also if they get ahead of the left tackle starting money market, because in the next 3 to 5 years, when they keep raising that salary cap and you start getting some of these young guys that are playing really well at the left tackle position, I mean, could you imagine what Joe Alt is going to get paid in the next 3 years? Can you imagine what some of these big time guys like did Rashawn Slater? I don't think he's even been extended yet, and I think that he's going to see some significant money. There are players that are going to start making crazy cash, and right now we're at a negotiation standpoint with Ike where we can also say, hey, look, man, we believe in you. But still, it's not there. Like, the metrics of you being elite aren't there. So we're not going to give you elite money, but we do want to pay you what we believe in you. And we believe you to be our guy. Maybe not everybody's guy, but you're our guy. I think that is a terrific bargaining chip to start with here. And I have no problem going ahead and putting that money away. Because, again, what we've seen Brant Tillis do is use contracts almost like layaway and like a loan, right? It's like equity. Like, he can sit there and he can say, I've got, yeah, right, man. Like, he's like, I got all this stuff sitting there, and like, I can use it to just reshift all of these things around and redistribute my money. Like, that's what he's doing when he makes these long-term extensions early. And in the NFL, we're seeing success with teams that do these things early and get ahead of it. J.C. Horn looks like a smart move already, right? And it's not even the offseason that move happened isn't even over. So yeah, great stuff. I think that go ahead, give Icky his money. I don't have a problem with it. He's still young too, man. So let them develop. He seemed to take to the coaching last year.
Bryson?
Yeah, and I think before I go, we'll shout out Alex real quick. My good buddy, Alex. I was on the show a couple weeks ago.
What was the show called? What was the show called?
Panthers on Map.
Panthers on Map. There you go.
There's a couple of dudes talking football. Parents in town, so I got to bounce. Thanks for letting me be obnoxious. Here on Wednesdays.
Cheers.
Cheers, Alex. Appreciate it.
Tell your folks we said hello here on Panthers on Tap. Make sure you put your pants on before you see them.
Now,
look, I love Alex too. See, man, like that was my buddy too, man. I love Alex. I just give him a hard time.
He's a good dude, man. He really is. He means no harm to everybody in the chat. He means no harm. He's just obnoxious, like he says. In regards to Ike Ekwonu, I think I'm more on the page that this guy is developmentally wise on the same page as Bryce Young. Different from the wide receiver we talked about earlier, which I know, different drafts, different years in the NFL, which I can understand that argument. But I think Ekwonu has continued, rookie year was good. I think arguably second year step back, right? I think there was many people on this team that took a step back in the second year. And then third year under Canales took a step forward and was consistent in the run game and consistent-ish in the pass game. I think Ekwonu brings stability to that left tackle position in regards to specifically the run game, and I think he's continuing to make strides under the new offensive line coach Joe Gilbert in the pass sets game for the offensive line. So I think when you have that at the offensive tackle position, you got to keep it, man. You got to hope for the best because left tackles are hard to find in this league. There's a lot of teams looking for a left tackle, and Ekwonu, while he probably wasn't the best player when we drafted him at what was it, sixth overall, probably didn't come in and make the immediate impact that we had hoped at the time. Going into that second year and thinking that position was solidified, I think he's continued to make steps towards hopefully fans believing that he's that position at left tackle. And I really believe what Canales said is what a lot of fans believe. I think we've got our left tackle, and I think we have our left tackle too. I'm not 100% sure at this point, and I want to believe that we do, but I think moving forward, he's probably our best bet at left tackle, and continuing to believe in that investment that we made in the top 10 in the NFL draft with Icky at left tackle, and hoping that those holds or penalties and things that we've seen from Icky year in and year out, that those continue to subside and that he makes growth in those pass set game, pass blocking and continues to make growth in the run game, which I think he's been pretty solid in at this point in his NFL career.
I will say this. I think we got our left tackle in this system. I don't know if I'd be saying that if we were in a different system with Icky. I think this system fits him very well. And if they continue on this trajectory of the style of offense Canales wants to play, I think he's going to benefit greatly. And it would be beneficial if they would lock him down long term if that's the way they're going to go, because it's going to be cheaper in the long run. So I don't hate that at all. And kind of bypassing the fifth-year option, because smart teams get ahead of it before everyone else jumps on board. And you've seen that in past years. Pat Surtain comes to mind. His contract was less than what these guys got this time around in the cornerback room in Denver. So I think if anytime you can try to get ahead of the curve a little bit, it'll help you out in the long run financially. So yeah, I mean, he's still, like Bryson said, I think he's still, and I think Canales even admitted this, like he needs to do better with his hands, and he gets himself in trouble at times with holding, and he needs to work on that. I think he said that in this quote when he was talking about him. So, I mean, there are definitely things, but he has grown immensely from the Frank Reich system. And, these offensive line coaches have done they've done a really good job with him this past season, and just those guys deserve a raise too. And I know bringing in Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt has helped it greatly too. But like those coaches have done a good job developmentally, and honestly, even with some of the guys even behind them that have become starters this past year due to injuries. So, I can't speak highly enough of that coaching unit as a whole. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about another guy here quickly. And that's Taylor Moton. I pulled this out. He called him Steady Eddie, but there was some other comments which would make you think maybe, Carolina, and even with their visits they got, trying to read the tea leaves, that, they might try to draft Taylor Moton's replacement this draft. I know Joe Person threw out some rumblings at, don't discount at
a fucking atom bomb, dude.
At pick 8, could they go tackle? I personally don't buy that. I don't think that would happen. I would be stunned on draft day if that happened. But you can't discount Joe. Joe has, he's as credible gets when it comes to the Panthers beat. So, Ricky, thoughts on, Taylor Moton's status moving forward? Honestly, at all signs point, this is probably his last year in Carolina.
Yeah, I think when they said that they were going to be willing to let him play out the contract and not extend him, I think that tells you that they're comfortable with this being the last hurrah. And that if maybe they were able to do some sort of finagling, maybe they can move him and look at drafting a successor. That's the only way that I would look at 8 personally. I'm not even going to speak on that, though, because I know that will just make Bryson furious. And I don't think that he can take much more tonight after the conversation we've already had about pick 8. So, yeah, look, I think Taylor Moton's a good player. He's been great for us for a long time. And I do think that he's been a very, very good football player for some really bad football teams. And that means something to me. But I also don't think you have to be nostalgic about it just to keep him around. If you can upgrade and you find somebody that you like in this draft, whether it's in the 2nd or 3rd round, Marcus Bowe, Logan Brown type of guys, or Ozzie Trapillo, take a chance. See if you can develop him. And if you can, cool, let him walk his way. If not, then you got to sign him again next year. Is how I pretty much look at that.
Man, look, yeah, we're talking about replacing the most consistent player in this offense for year in, year out for the past, 4 or 5 years. Like, miss me with any talk about drafting a player in the top 1 or 2 rounds to replace him. I think he's going to get a contract after this season. I don't buy that, that they're moving on. I do agree with the sentiments that, let's see how he does this season. Taylor Moton's going to be Taylor Moton. He's going to be consistent at that right tackle position. He's probably going to be one of the best offensive players on that whole entire unit. And I don't care that he's aging, the same as Adam Thielen, right? He's going to put up numbers. He's going to be consistent as a position. He's a good player. And I don't even want to talk about drafting his replacement within the first 3 rounds of this NFL draft. Pass. Don't want to talk about it.
All right. Another guy, well, if you don't want to talk about this, we'll just go to Ricky on this one. Raheem Blackshear is back with the team. Potential kick returner. We'll see if they bring anyone in the draft. Thoughts on this? That says it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, that's how I feel about it. Raheem Blackshear has not contributed. I get it. He's a return specialist. I don't think that that's as hard to find as maybe some want to sell it as, right? Of like, hey, this is a depth signing. We need depth. Hey, this is a special team signing. We need that. You can get that in the draft. You can get that in undrafted free agency. I mean, I truly believe that. I also believe that if you wanted a free agent that could do those things, maybe you do that strictly sometimes for the sense of fresh blood, right? Saying that we want to keep the continuity and do the things that we're doing because we believe in this unit, it's a tough sell when the unit hasn't been terrific. You know what I mean? Maybe if there was better results, then I could understand the continuity. But this offense has been bad, and he's one of the bottom of the depth chart guys for the offense. So I'm not sentimental either way, man. I think Raheem's a really nice person from all the accounts that I've seen. He was doing a thing at a school here in Charlotte where he opened doors for kids getting out of their cars and stuff in the morning. That was pretty rad. He actually opened the car for my friend's daughter. It was very cool, man. It seems like a very nice guy. But as far as a football player, I think it's take it or leave it, to be completely honest.
I just want to, throw this out there because I think special teams is being kind of overlooked. We are going to have an entirely different special teams unit this year between both, the new punter. You're going to have you're going to have a new kicker, it sounds like, and then the entire special teams unit. I'm talking gunners. Carolina has lost a shit ton when it comes to that unit. They might sign Sam Franklin back. I don't think he's signed yet as a free agent, so that's still out there. But people, I think, are overlooking that a little bit. And it sounds like Dave wants to kind of get some of those guys in the back end of like the day 3, go out and get some special teams guys. But we're looking at a whole different unit. And I don't know if that's an entirely bad thing because there's guys obviously we've talked about, but there's some guys that they had that were solid. Sam Franklin comes to mind. The tight end that's escaping me, who signed, I think, with Atlanta. Felipe Franks was a solid piece on that special teams unit.
Yeah.
The guy that signed in Las Vegas, who's escaping me too, Lonnie Johnson, I think is his name.
Yep.
He also had made plays.
Ian Thomas.
Before. We're not talking about him.
Okay.
But there was some guys that they're gonna have to fill some holes there, whether it's through the draft or free agency. But I want to bring this up, and this is sorry,
he just read the private chat.
We're not getting into that, but I want to bring this up because I love this guy's name or girl's name. Pets in a Bathtub. I love it. I appreciate this account. Safety discussion, and I'm going to throw this one to Ricky because I don't know a ton about Sanker, but Sanker versus Blackman at that safety spot. They obviously have a hole to fill. They need a starter aside of Trayvon Merrig, which it was confirmed. Damn it, I was right this week. It was confirmed this week. That's that.
Nice
is how you pronounce his last name. And I bomb a lot of last names, but not his. Damn it.
Good work on that one.
Not that one. Ricky, give us a lowdown on Sanker versus Blackman.
I'm going to do this very quickly, Bryson. I would say both. When you say Sanker versus Blackman, I'd say both because if you're going to draft Sanker in 3rd, 4th round, I would guess is your area. You don't need to bet on a 3rd or a 4th round rookie safety to be your starter. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think you're throwing him into the fire. Sanker has all the ability in the world to be a starter in the NFL. I'm a big fan of Jonas Sanker, have been for a while. You can check and look and see. I was talking about him in December. He has been higher on my board than anywhere else that I've seen. I think that he would be an absolutely terrific draft pick, and he's one of my favorites to mock to us. But I would bring in Blackman anyways, and I would have him start, and I would have Jonas Sanker learn the football game in the NFL and have him ready to come out of the gates firing in his 2nd year. And I think that Sanker could also play special teams, which when we're talking about needing somebody to contribute in that area, there you go.
Well, if you guys don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do. We got 540 people listening at 11 at night, and I know there are people out there that haven't subscribed to our channel. We put out some great content, and we'll have some stuff coming up here. We're going to do top 5 defensive prospects next week that each of us would prefer Carolina to draft. The week after, we'll do the top 5 offensive guys we are looking at. And then the week of the draft, we need to square this away, but we're going to have a mock draft with some of the folks we had on last year. We'll try to predict what the Panthers are going to do. 7 rounds. It's going to be a lengthy discussion. It will probably not go less than 2.5 hours. It's going to be a long one. So Bryson, buckle up, be ready.
Hey, there you go. We got a little super chat
Panthers
out.
Panther
Bo. Hey, I was actually going to ask if I could close out tonight by talking real quickly about some of the comments that we have not talked on Panther Bo, because he had a couple that have flown under the radar. So while we cheers him, let's also say a couple of things that he said here tonight that I was laughing inside about. First, he said, cheers, happy Thursday at some point in the chat, because we've already messed up his internal clock so much with the way we do these episodes, and he keeps that bit going. So that makes me laugh every time, Panther Poe. I love you for that. But second is this one that I just saw right here, where he says, love Ian. God, he just needed one more year in this offense. Talking about Ian Thomas. I think it is absolutely underrated how funny Panther Poe is. This is one of the best watchers, listeners, and pals of the show that we have in here.
Love that,
I've had lots of conversations with him. Cheers, Panther Poe. I hope that your Thursday is terrific, and I hope that your Wednesday tomorrow is even better.
Yeah, we need to get you up here and do some golfing, a round of golf, and have some fun on the golf course, because I think it'd be a hell of a time. But we're going to leave it there. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in tonight. Again, if you haven't checked out the first half of the episode when we talked to Justin Melo, he was a great interview talking about the top prospects. We got a lot on tap these next couple of weeks. See what I did there? But we'll be back next week. And until then, keep pounding.